Hi, I'm Nicole Kemper. I'm a writer, actor, and filmmaker living in Atlanta, Georgia. This is 50 Foot Woman, and I've committed to shooting at least one roll of motion picture film per month. Today, I wanted to talk about 16mm magazine film. 16mm film was introduced in the 1920s as a cheaper alternative to 35mm film. 1923 to be exact, which means last year that 16mm film had its 100th birthday. 16mm was considered to be an amateur or low budget alternative, and 16mm film comes in single perf or perforations or double perforation film. Double perf was the original format that it was offered in, and then later single perf, so most current, or the most plentiful, modern version of 16mm is the single perf version, but there are plenty of places where you can still get double perf film. Most people, when they think of 16mm film, they're probably thinking about the type that comes on these 100-foot daylight spools. But 16mm film was also offered in these cartridges, which were called magazines. Kodak released its first 16mm magazine camera in 1935, and inside of these magazines, which are metal and quite sturdy, there's a 50-foot roll in here, and it's a double perf film. 16mm magazine film declined in popularity in the 1960s as many of its customers moved over to Super 8 cartridges. You can't buy new magazines, but there are many old magazines with expired film for sale on eBay. So if you have the knowledge and ability, you can actually take these little guys apart and load them with fresh film, or you can buy them from someone who is reloading them with fresh film. I got my cartridges from the Film Photography Project, and the way it works is you purchase the film, the developing and the scanning sort of all in one go, and when you send them back the cartridge, they keep it and load it with fresh film for somebody else. I have a Kodak Cine Royal 16mm magazine camera. These were manufactured from the early 1950s to about 1967. So let's take a closer look at it. The Kodak Cine Royal has, at least this particular model, has 3 different speeds that you can film at: 16 frames per second, 24 frames per second, and 64 frames per second. You can actually buy different lens focal lengths. This one, you can set the aperture as well as the focal distance. This is a 25mm lens, which I believe was kind of the standard lens that you got with it. But there are also other lenses you can get. And of course, these are not reflex cameras, meaning when I'm looking through the viewfinder back here, I'm not actually seeing what the lens is seeing, but I'm seeing just above what the lens is seeing. So along the side here, you've got this slider, I guess you could call it, where you can switch between the different lens types or lens focal lengths. So it goes all the way down to 15mm for your wide angle. You've got 40, 50, 63, 102, and 152. So currently I've got the 25, but hoping to perhaps get some other lenses at some point. Along the side here, you've got your lock, open, or run. This is where the magazine goes. The film you want your film up against this side, although really the cartridge is only going to go in one way. Once it's closed, of course, these cartridges are light tight. So when you close it, there's a little window here. The window opens up, and that is where the film will be exposed when you're shooting. When you have it in lock mode, there's no way to accidentally turn the camera on and have it run in your bag or something. It will only run when it is in run mode. It is a wind up motor, so you just crank her up. This one is a little temperamental, so I try not to crank it all the way. So I'm going to set it to run. And you can hear it there running at 16 frames per second. There's also a little like an exposure chart here on the side where it kind of gives you a sense of what aperture you should be setting in bright sun, cloudy, and all of that. Of course, keep in mind that these are for very much lower speed, lower ISO film stock. So it's always best to use a light meter or a light meter app to get an accurate reading when you're setting your aperture. The first magazine that I shot with this camera was a color negative 40 ISO speed film. Let's take a look at the footage. Okay, so I started off just shooting a little bit in my neighborhood just to kind of get it going, making sure that it was working. I was going on a trip to Charleston with my family, and so I just wanted to make sure that the camera was working first. One thing that I was really struck by was just the level of detail and clarity. Of course, here we are in Charleston at the ocean side, and you know, you can really see, like, of course, with the 40 ISO film, you're getting not a whole lot of grain, but we're really just getting so much detail. And I was really taken with the image, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I can see why people love shooting 16 millimeter so much. I still love Super 8, and you can really see, gosh, the waves hitting the rocks here, and even just the detail and this, like, the beautiful skin tones we're getting here on the faces. I was just really struck with just the beauty of this film stock, and the light, of course, glinting off the water there. Of course, Super 8 film, 16 millimeter film is, you know, twice as wide and twice as high in terms of its aspect ratio of the actual film frame as Super 8. And there you go, we're out. It was short. I shot it at 24 frames per second. So with 50 feet, 100 feet is about 2.5 minutes. So with 50 feet at 24 frames per second, you're really looking at, like, you know, like a minute, a little over a minute. So it's really not a lot of footage that you're getting there. Anyway, I've shot 16 millimeter film before in film school. We shot on a Bolex, we shot some Super 16, and I remember just being blown away by how gorgeous that looked. But it's been a really long time, and of course I've been working with Super 8 or 8 millimeter standard 8 for some time now, and so I still love those formats, and I'm not going to stop shooting them. But I definitely was really blown away by the look of this, and looking forward to using this camera more. Some things that I noticed when I got the footage back, it looked to me like there was a little bit of shake going on the film inside of the gate, perhaps. And there's really not much to be done about that because it's not like I could have loaded the camera differently. It's in a magazine. So other than trying to get the camera serviced, I'm not really sure what can be done about that. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing in DaVinci is taking this in and seeing, like, can we add just a little bit of stabilization to this to take out a bit of that shake. If I'm just out, you know, shooting a family trip or something with it, it's not that, I guess it's not something that is a deal breaker for me. Obviously, if you were, you know, shooting something for like a film, like a film project that you're sharing outside of your family, for me, this would bother me. So I'm interested to see, can that be mitigated in any way? I'm also interested to see, so I shot this at 24 frames per second, and then I shot some black and white in magazine film at 16 frames per second. And I'm interested to see if shooting in a different frame rate, like, how does that impact that shake? Does it make it better? Does it make it worse? Does it make no difference? I don't know. Ordinarily, we would want to take a look at, like, are we loading the camera properly? But really, like, I mean, there's only really one way to do it. You take the cartridge, you slide it in, you close the door, and there's not really much more that you can do there. We're just gonna have to see how the camera continues to behave as we, you know, try out some different cartridges, try out some different film stocks. At some point, I'd like to try. I did purchase a magazine by accident, actually. I was trying to buy an expired daylight spool so I could practice loading a different camera, but I accidentally purchased a expired, actually a Kodak magazine, and so I'm hanging on to that for a future time where I feel, you know, brave enough to try loading up some film in there myself. So stay tuned for that in the future. So why shoot in a format that is, you know, kind of obscure? I mean, why do anything? I think it's fun to try out some of these, you know, more unusual ways of doing things. Of course, magazines would have been commonplace, you know, in the 1950s, but you know, there's obviously some challenges there. There are limited places where you can buy them and get them developed. You can't just send it to any old lab. But what I will say is that working with a film photography project is quite easy, and they have a variety of different film stocks, and they load them for you, and you send it right back to them, and they take care of the rest. So it's quite simple. If you are outside of the United States, unfortunately, I don't really have a recommendation for you as to where you could purchase magazine film. But perhaps if somebody is outside of the United States and wants to provide that information in the comments, I welcome that information. I will say that if you are interested in shooting 16mm film, but a little intimidated by some of the more manual features that go along with it, like maybe you've been shooting Super 8, you want to try 16mm, but you're like, you know, like I'm a little intimidated by having to load those daylight spools. 16mm magazines might be a good way to dip your toe in. You do have to use a light meter and set your aperture, and you do have to set the focus. But if you're just a little concerned about whether or not you can properly load the camera, then a 16mm magazine could be a nice way to go. Or if you're on the go, if you're trying to you want to shoot some 16mm, you're on a family trip, or you're just doing something that's really on the go and you don't have time to stop and, like, you know, reload, and you just want to be able to pop a cartridge in there. I feel like 16mm magazine is going to give you that ease in terms of getting that film in and out of the camera. And this light tight magazine really does protect that film from being damaged as you're loading it and unloading it from the camera. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and are interested in analog film formats like 16mm or Super 8 or even Standard 8, I hope that you will subscribe to the channel. If you would like a little bit more, I also have a blog on Substack where I talk a little bit about my still photography. So I do share these videos from the 50-Foot Woman series, but I also share some blog articles about my process learning still photography and some of the photo walks and examples of photos and different film stocks that I'm trying out. And the link to that Substack is in the description of this video. So get out there. Don't be afraid to try a film format that's a little more obscure. You can get some really good results, and let's shoot more film, you guys.